Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions, and welcome to working on a wonderful, sweet, cute, and the #1 easiest crochet scarf you will ever create. So if you're a little bit newer, I think you're gonna have a really good time working on this scarf. It is only using the half double crochet stitch. So generally, when you're newer, we start you off learning the single crochet and the double crochet. The half double crochet is similar to the double crochet, but just one less yarn over. And you might look at this and go, wow, that looks like a knitted scarf. It's actually crocheted. And you might think it's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to take you through today's tutorial to show you why this is the easiest scarf to crochet. It creates a little bit of texture, and I think it'll make for a very sweet gift if you're still looking for things to make for the holiday season, or you can make this for yourself. And just at the end here, I added a really simple little chain stitch loop border. So again, very, very beginner friendly, but also nice if you're a little bit experienced and you just want something simple to make that you can whip up really quickly. I think both beginners and experienced crocheters will enjoy this project. Now, it does look a little different on the back than it does on the front. So it's based on how we crocheted the stitch into the back loops versus the front loops of the stitch. And I'll talk about that in the tutorial. Now, this yarn just had this speckly color in it, and so it created this colorway all on its own. So that's also the great thing about using a yarn like this, is it makes the project look more intricate than it really is. And I'll talk about the yarn I used once we get into the materials. I enjoyed it based on the color and the fact that it does come up nice and fluffy. There's just a few caveats which I'll talk about if you're a little bit newer. It is a blended yarn. It's a blend of polyester, acrylic, and some wool. Now the wool is only about 4%, so if you're not a fan of wool, which I generally am not just because I find it a little itchy, but this one actually comes out kind of fluffy and soft. But like I said, I'm going to go through that in more detail in the tutorial. Now this measures about 52 to 53 inches long, I believe. And so this is perfect for any size, really. I tried this on myself as well, and it wraps around 1.5 times, and I still have a little bit to tuck into my scarf. So it's really fine for an adult. I specifically made this for a child of 7 years old. So it's definitely going to fit them nicely. It's going to give them something nice and cushy to snuggle into, and nice and easy, which is what we like. So let's get started. And oh, by the way, if you're new here, I'm Karen, and I love sharing my joy and love for crochet with you all here. And I love anything to do with crafting with crochet. So it could be clothing items, it could be home decor, all kinds of different things. You never know what you're going to get when you tune in. So I hope you enjoy hanging out with me today. And for those of you that are my regular crochet friends, welcome back. So let's get started. Okay, so the yarn I'm going to be using is this heathered tweed yarn by Loops and Threads. I've always been kind of curious about this yarn. The initial texture, I don't know, I'm mixed about. It's soft, but it's not soft at the same time. I do like the colorway. I felt it was very holiday-like, so that's why I thought it would be perfect for this time of year. It comes in a 150-gram skein, which has 418 yards or 382 meters. It should be enough for your scarf. If you're making it for an adult and perhaps you want to make it extra wider or longer, then just be on the safe side and pick up 2 skeins. Now, this contains 60% polyester, 30% acrylic, and 4% wool. So I think that's what gives it this kind of unusual texture. But I'm going to give this a go. I like the colors, and I want to give it a try. So that's the yarn. And then the hook size we're using for this is a 6.5 millimeter hook, which is also known as a K or a size 10.5 if you go by those hook labels. And actually the recommended hook size for this yarn is indeed a 6.5 millimeter hook, even though this is considered a lightweight number 3 yarn. Now, most of you know that I always go rogue with hook sizes, but I'm actually going to try this out. I think there's something to using this larger hook with this yarn that's going to give it a nice drape. So that's what I'm going to use for that. And as always, make sure you have a pair of scissors on hand and of course a yarn needle to weave in any ends. Now let's get started. So we're going to start by placing a slip knot on our hook. And the only thing is I can already see that this yarn felts very easily. So just a little something I can tell right away is really be careful, because if you have to frog your work, this is not going to end well. See how that sticks? So, my instinct was correct. So we'll see. We'll see how we do. So you can see hopefully a little bit more up close how the fiber looks in the yarn here. Okay, but let's start with a slip knot on our hook. And I'm going to begin with a chain of 30 chains. I'm making mine for an adult size. If you're making yours for a child, I would say at 12 and under, I would probably chain 20. If you're making it for a child under 5, I would probably do between 15 and 20 chains. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 30 for mine. So I'm going to start off with just chain stitches. Okay, so I've chained 30 and I kept them nice and relaxed there so you can see the little fuzz there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to find the second chain from the hook. So you're going to skip this one and into the next one. Remember, this loop on the hook never counts as a stitch. And we are going to half double crochet into that chain. Now, because this is the beginning chain, I'm actually going to work into the back bumps here. So this is the back side of the chain. So hopefully you can see that. I know with the colorway here, I know it's tricky to see. So this is the front. And then when we turn, this is the back. So that's the back bump there. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to half double crochet into that stitch. And this is what I'm going to do all the way down the chain. So just into the back bump. Now, if you're new and the back bump really throws you off, you can absolutely just go in through the front of the chain. So see, there's that little bump there. So I'm just going to help it along and just insert my hook through there. Just like that. Okay, so row 1 is complete. And I have to say this yarn gives a nice stretch. So a lot of times in that initial chain row, it can feel a little stiff, but it does have a nice stretch. So I can see how this will feel nice and cozy. I'm still not a fan of how it felt, but it actually is creating a nice feel. Okay, we're going to go on to row number 2. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. This chain 1 will not count as anything. It's just going to help us turn our work here. Now, hopefully you can see that the half double crochet has a loop on the side as well as the 2 top loops here. I know with the colored yarn, it's not always easy. So we are going to work into this front bottom loop right there. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to place a half double crochet. We're going to go in through the front underneath that front bottom loop and half double crochet. Okay, so we're not going to work in to the top of the stitch. We're not even going to work under the stitch. See those 2 loops? We are going to work into this bottom front loop here. Okay, so always remember to yarn over first and then go under that front bottom loop and half double crochet. And that is the repeat for row number 2. So you're going to do this all the way to the end of your row. Okay, I've completed row number 2. And when I turn it over, now you can see that really pretty ridge effect. And it gives it that knit-like look. Okay, so that's row 2. Now we're going to go on to row number 3. And that will be the end of our repeat. So it's a 2-row repeat. So row number 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn like we did before. And this time we're going to work into the back loop. So what we want to do is keep the ridges always on one side only. So we are going to half double crochet right away into that very first stitch. But instead of the front bottom loop, we are going to go into the back loop. So that's the front bottom loop. This is the front top loop, and then this right here is the back loop. So that's where we're going to go in through right now. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that back loop, and half double crochet. See, and now it pushes these 2 side loops to the front to mimic what we have here. So I'll do that again. So we're going to go in through the back loop. So it looks like we're going through the top of the stitch, and we're going to half double crochet. And that is what you're going to do all the way to the end of your row. Okay, I've completed row number 2. So now you can see this ridge row has come forward as well. So this is now going to be the right side or the front of our work. So there you can see the ridges. And when we turn our work to the back, it should be fairly flat. So these 2 rows are now what we're going to continue to repeat. So now we would chain 1, turn our work, and now we're going to repeat row number 2. So that means we're going to find the front bottom loop. So we go all the way down here to half double crochet into that. So again, the front bottom loop. So see, I'm going from under there and inserting my hook. So you are now going to continue to repeat row 2 and 3 until you reach a total of 172 rows. And then once you have your desired length, then I will meet back up with you. But for now, you're going to keep practicing your half double crochets, working into the front bottom loop for every even row, and then into the back loops for every odd row. And I will meet you back here in just a little bit. Okay, so I have quite a length of scarf here. So I've done a total of 172 rows. So you can see the texture is coming out beautifully. Hopefully you can see that there. With the ribbing on the front, and this is what it looks like on the back. Now you'll notice, for those of you that are knitters, you'll probably be very familiar with this as well. Your edges are curling. So for some reason, anytime we do things that are creating this knit-like effect, the edges tend to curl. So usually what I'll do in a project like this is I will do a border, which is exactly what we're going to do now. And look at how much I have left. Let's see if I can get right to the end of this skein without needing to buy another one. So as I said, I have 172 rows, I believe. And approximately, I've measured it, I have about 52 inches in length. And which I think will be just plenty to kind of wrap around once and be able to tie. So again, keeping it very simple and most especially beginner friendly with a nice finished look. So we're going to give this a little border now. I have not snipped my end here. And I'm going to show you how we're going to create this really simple and fun little border here. So let me back up here. We are now going to start working into the sides of our rows, if you can see that there. And normally, if we were using a double crochet stitches, we would be able to fit 2 stitches into the side of each row. If we were working single crochet stitches, we could work one stitch into the side of each row, and your work would look nice and even. It would say nice and flat, all that beautiful stuff. Half double crochets are like this in-between size, so it's always tricky to try and work into the sides of those rows. So if I can avoid doing an actual stitch, I do, because it just saves us a whole lot of headache. So what I'm going to do for this border is I'm going to use a really sweet little mesh stitch or a diamond mesh stitch border, and it's just using chain stitches. So again, keeping it nice and simple, but it'll still look quite elegant. So what we're going to do here is we're going to chain 3, and then into the side of every single row, we're just going to place a slip stitch. So right here, that's the top of that's the bottom of the chain 3. So we're going to go to the next row. So it's really easy to find because you just follow where each rib will lay. So this is the first little rib I see here. So somewhere at the end here, I'm going to try and get somewhere in one of those first loops. I'm going to insert my hook and I'm going to slip stitch. Now it might be a little tricky sometimes. It's not an exact science. So right there, I'm going to get my hook in there and I'm just going to slip stitch. You want to try your best to at least get in where there's more than one loop. You don't want to slip stitch. Like for example, if I go in there, it's only one loop, and for me that's just not strong enough and it's going to stretch out your work. So all you're doing is you're creating these little chain loops. So again, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to find that next ribbing area, which is right here, and I'm just going to insert. If I can, I'll help it along, and I'm just going to slip stitch. Okay, so again, it's really not looking like much just yet. So there's 2 little chain spaces. So again, you're always going to chain 3 and then find the next little rib section there, which is right here. I know the speckled yarn can make it a little tricky to see, but there is the next little ribbing there. I'm going to find the top. And as long as I have a couple of stitches or a couple loops there, I'm good, and I'm going to slip stitch and pull that through. So chain 1, 2, and 3, and then find the next ribbing, and it's right there. And slip stitch. I just want to do a couple there. So there you go. You can see it's just creating this nice little kind of looping area. Now, it may buckle a little bit and ripple, but that's okay because it's supposed to kind of create like a little ruffle effect. Now, what I'm hoping is that it's going to help kind of settle down this little curl here. Now, some of you might think, well, why don't you just block it? Absolutely, you can block it. The thing is with this type of stitch, over the course of time, it just naturally wants to curl like that. So if you can put a border on it, it really helps to stabilize the edges. So like I said, I'm using a really simple border, something that takes the least amount of stitches because as I've shown you before, this is pretty much all I have left. Some people would go ahead and do something like maybe a single crochet border and maybe do several rounds to really stabilize it. That's totally up to you. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. So that is all I'm going to keep doing. And if you don't like it to sit like super close like that, you can actually, you know, sometimes go into a rib area, maybe the next time go into the space between the ribs and alternate that way and see how you like how it's looking. And if you want to do more than one round, you also can do that. For now, I'm going to do one round. I'm going to go all the way down the edge here. And once I get to the corner, so this would have been my last rib, right? Chain 3, I'm going to slip stitch into the corner right there. That stitch is waiting for you. And then I'm going to chain 3 and then continue down the end. Now, along this side, you actually have stitches to work into because this was our foundation chain row. I know it's tricky to see with a lot of that fuzziness going through there. So what I would do here is I would chain 3, skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next. chain 3, skip a stitch, and slip stitch into the next. And I would do that all the way down till you get to the corner, and then come back up around the other side. And of course, once you come to the top, it's the same method here. Now, like I said, I'm going to do one full round. I'm really hoping that this is going to get me to do one full round. And then I will hop back on here and show you guys what my scarf looks like. Okay, you will not believe this, but this is all that I have left of that skein. So I am very happy. I did get to the end with my border. Now I did roll it up a little bit here just so that I could try to influence the edges to lay out a little straighter. So when I unroll this, see, it still has a tendency of wanting to curl, but with a little bit of wet blocking, that'll probably help the situation. So here it is, guys, the easiest border ever. So you can see those chain 3s, just creates this pretty little scallop. Now I have to say, if I did have a little bit more left, I most likely would have done a second round just to try and help keep this a little bit more flat in general. And so I just would have continued doing the chain 3s and the slip stitches, but I would have slip stitched into the space and then chain 3. So that would have created that traditional diamond mesh stitch. But I still think it came out super sweet and cute. And like I said, the #1 easiest scarf to crochet. And by using this fun little speckled colorway, it just creates a little bit of extra interest, and I think would make really sweet actually for a child's scarf, which is what I have made here. So I hope you liked that, and I hope you enjoyed practicing #1, practicing your half double crochets, but also practicing understanding where the front loops and the back loops are in your stitch. And I have created actually a tutorial lesson on that, on how to identify parts of your stitch. And I'll leave a link to that in the description box down below if you're new to this channel and if you'd like to check out that lesson. It's a really handy tool to help you get more comfortable with the way your stitches are formed. And then you can play with it and create different textures while using simple basic stitches. So there it is on the back. And then I just unroll it and you have your nice length here. All right, guys, that's it. So if you have any further questions, as always, please do feel free to leave them for me in the comment box down below. And I know a lot of you have enjoyed being able to email me directly, which I absolutely love. So feel free to email me at info@crochetcrafty.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I also always recommend, if you have a specific question on a project you're working on, please do attach a photo of the particular thing that's happening with you. That really helps me to kind of see where you're at, and I can better answer your question. Now, don't forget, make sure to check out the website, crochetcrafty.com. There's a lot of fantastic goodies on there, lots of free written patterns, as well as a link to my Etsy shop with other patterns you may enjoy purchasing if you'd like to support the channel and support what I'm doing here. Also, there are fantastic things like sizing charts and templates. So if you're making garments, I find that those templates can come in handy. So go check that out. And of course, you can find me on the socials at Instagram and Facebook at The Stitch Sessions. I tend to spend a little bit more time on Instagram than Facebook, but I do check it out and it does get updated with the same things I post on Instagram. So make sure to check me out there. All right, guys, I wish you luck on creating your fantastic, sweet little scarf. I just have to cut off my tail here. And make sure to tag me. I want to see what kinds of colorways you guys chose, or if you decided to use the same yarn I did, which was the heathered tweed. And like I said, I had used the bright speckle, but they have all kinds of really cool colorways. So if you happen to pick up this yarn, tag me in your scarf project. I'm really curious to see how the texture came out with those other bespeckled colors. Isn't that just pretty? All right, guys, still have plenty of time to create this for Christmas as a gift. So off you go. Happy crocheting as always. Have a wonderful day. Remember, don't stress yourselves out. I know it's easy to do over the holidays. Take good care of yourselves. And as always, I'll see you guys in next week's session. Bye-bye.